Before I invite Anna, on a personal note, I would say that it's so great to work with an amazing team at the EDC, and we are it's our honor to partner with Anna, and we see here all our friends from the EDC, Wilson and Bridget and Melissa at the back. Hello, Melissa. And it's really a great pleasure, and we look for the future to build together the Cyber NYC for the future of New York City and the New Yorkers. Without further ado, Anna ARINO.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you for the warm introduction. I think the partnership between New York City and Israel runs deep. An example of that is the campus on Roosevelt Island, which is a partnership between Cornell and the Technion, which opened up this summer. And we were very excited to renew that partnership with our Cyber NYC initiative. Also, every time I start talking about cybersecurity with our Israeli partners, I get really, really freaked out about the future and conclude very, very fast that we really, really need you. So thank you for being here, and thank you for what you're doing for New York. So for those of you that don't know, EDC is the economic development arm of the City of New York. We are a self-sustaining, not-for-profit with a staff of about 500 people. And our mission is to create jobs and essentially keep the engine of the economy running for New York City. We have a broad toolkit. We leverage the city's real estate. We manage 17 million square feet of city-owned property across New York City, a very scarce resource. We invest in infrastructure broadly, from parks to transit to schools, affordable housing, and we also make direct investments in strategic sectors of New York City's economy through equity investments in companies, loans, grants, partnerships with for-profits and not-for-profits that are building the innovation ecosystem in New York. And so I thought the best way to describe our work would be to show a few examples of what is currently in our portfolio. So we have a new transit system that we launched 2 years ago, NYC Ferry, with a number of lines that are connecting all of the 5 boroughs across the East River. We just announced a few months ago lines to Staten Island and to the Upper West Side of Manhattan. We are building a continuous bike path and pedestrian path around Manhattan's waterfront. There's already a contiguous path on the west side and down on the tip of Manhattan, and up on the east side. We're focused on the north part, north of United Nations now, to link the area around 53rd Street. We are bringing online a tech innovation hub in Union Square. That's on 14th Street. It'll be opening in a couple of years. It's going to start construction soon. And the idea here is to provide a space for tech companies that are looking for a place to grow and co-locate them with new innovative tech training providers that are essentially training New Yorkers for the skills of the future and that provide an alternative form of education that doesn't require a 4-year degree. So again, going back to creating jobs for New Yorkers and pathways to those jobs for the people that we serve. We're rezoning a number of neighborhoods across the city, from the Rockaways to Inwood and other ones in places of New York City that you might not know existed if you're not from here. And we're making investment in strategic areas of New York City's economy. This is a rendering of our mini Made in New York campus in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which is going to host fashion, film, and TV industry tenants, and making sure that our traditional industries have a place in the 21st century economy of the future. So as the Chief Strategy Officer, I get to think about where the middle-class jobs of the future are going to come from, and really how do we build a model inclusive economy that is not leaving people behind. And technology has a huge part to play in that, because when you look at the roles, at the jobs that are growing, and the jobs that are paying good wages here and that are available for a range of educational attainment levels, tech plays a key part in that. I thought I'd talk today about smart cities, what the city is doing to lay the groundwork for the city of the future, our investments in smart cities, and how those investments are really driving demand for cybersecurity services and products that are the underlying rationale for our $100 million investment that we're partnering with SOSA and others on. So I would say New York City has long been a lab of innovation and of solutions that then get scaled globally. Here's a picture of Thomas Edison's first ever commercial power plant in New York City on Pearl Street in the financial district. It was the first, like I said, commercial power plant in the world. It was also the first cogeneration plant in the world providing electricity to the grid, but also steam to manufacturers in lower Manhattan. And since then, New York City has really built a legacy of reimagining cities and what cities can be, and catches a global limelight. So when something happens in New York, people are watching and people are replicating in other parts of the world, like what's happening with our High Line or Universal Pre-K, which is now an initiative that's being replicated across the United States. And when it comes to cities, I think there's really three fundamental reasons why New York City is very good at putting forth innovative solutions. The first is the density of the infrastructure, and here, it's just a matter of scale and sheer scale. There's very few cities in the world that can compare. London, Tokyo, Shanghai, maybe a couple of others, but it's really a handful. When you talk about scales, we have nearly 800 bridges and tunnels in New York City, over 1 million buildings. We spend $15 billion in energy annually, and so I keep going, but the stats are remarkable. The second reason is that we have a very deep talent pool. Not only we have a very large-scale educated workforce with 2.3 million people with bachelor's degrees, which is more, by the way, than Boston, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and San Francisco combined. So that's remarkable. But when it comes to cities in particular, we are a global center of real estate, architecture, and design. And then the third reason why we're good at solving problems is because we have a lot of them. And there's lots of challenges with New York City's infrastructure. Our infrastructure is stressed and old. We haven't updated some critical infrastructure for over 50 years. And so the vulnerabilities of an aging infrastructure and being on the water and being a coastal city can create challenges that are forcing government to work in partnership with the private sector and work in partnership with our academic institutions to really push forth some solutions. So I wanted to give a few examples in three areas that are a priority and where New York City is taking the lead. The first is transit, and if you've been to New York for like a day, you know that our subways are really old and strained. And so the city is thinking a lot about how can we invest in complementary solutions that support our transit system, because we're expecting another half a million people in the next 2 decades. So the city continues to grow. So an example of that is the ferry that I talked about before. We launched in 2017, and it's already carried 5 million passengers. This is a traditional, while this is thought about as a traditional mode of transportation, the design of these ferries is cutting edge, particularly in how they're able to cut through the water and generate low wake, which makes the ride smoother, but also is more lenient on the infrastructure that's on the water, the bulkheads and so on. It's also equipped with free Wi-Fi and charging stations on the boat. Together with NYC Ferry, which is connecting, again, the 5 boroughs and activating the waterways on the waterfront where more and more people are living and working every day, we're investing and piloting other transportation solutions that we hope we can learn from and bring to scale. One of those is dockless e-bikes, partnering with companies like Pace and Lime and Jump to really pilot this solution and serve areas of the city that aren't well served by mass transit, like the Bronx, Staten Island, Far Rockaways in Queens. Excuse me. We continue to pilot additional solutions. Through NYCX Challenge, which is a challenge that the city runs, we selected Ubitricity, which is a Berlin company, to test electric charging stations across the city. They're piloting the technology right now, and the vision is to roll it out for all of the Department of Transportation's parking lots in the city. And so, obviously the solutions are helping with congestion, are helping reduce strain on the infrastructure. They serve areas of the city that are traditionally underserved, and they make the city more sustainable. This is my favorite. So another problem we have is garbage. And so this is the second first thing you notice about New York City when you land here. I was very surprised to learn we have the largest Department of Sanitation in the world. And our Department of Sanitation disposes of 12,000 tons of garbage every day. So I was like, how much is that? So apparently that's like a Tour Eiffel of garbage every day. And so, we've set very ambitious goals for ourselves as in terms of reducing the amount of waste generally, increasing organic collection, and we're also using technology and testing products to find ways in which we can become more effective at managing our trash. One of those are these solar-powered big bellies. You can see them around Lower Manhattan. They're smart in that they tell you when they're full and when the trash needs to be picked up. They're also Wi-Fi hotspots for Lower Manhattan that have the ability to collect data, send it back to our sanitation department, and also share it back with the Business Improvement District in Lower Manhattan to inform planning decisions. It's not all about problems. It's also about the opportunities that technology brings to make New York City a fair place for everybody by providing free high-speed Wi-Fi to every single New Yorker. This is a picture of Link NYC, which was an initiative that was announced in 2016 to roll out these kiosks across the city that provide free Wi-Fi. They provide free domestic calling. There's a 911 emergency button, a tablet for accessing the internet, and so on. I think they've been very successful. The stats are very impressive. My favorite is that there's 500,000 calls that are made through these links every month. I think this is an example of what I was saying before, that a lot of what gets tested and deployed and scaled in New York City is then copied around the world. London is rolling out links to replace their outdated phones, like we did here, and Philadelphia just announced that it's bringing links to Philadelphia. So we have seen over the last 5 to 10 years the broader smart cities and urban tech ecosystem grow very quickly. At EDC, similar to the investments we're making in cybersecurity, we've made investments over the years in incubators, accelerators, demonstration programs, and really sort of thoughtful, structured set of programs and events to bring the community together and foster its growth. In the last 3 years, we've seen the count of urban tech startups in the city rise to 200, and they've raised collectively $8 billion in venture capital, which is 10% of urban tech VC investment worldwide, which is remarkable. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I don't know if everybody's been since it opened, Hudson Yards. How many people have been at Hudson Yards? So I think this is another great example of New York City's sort of ability to take on really big challenges. And it's not about existing neighborhoods and existing infrastructure, but it's about how the city takes on projects like this. This is the biggest private real estate development in the history of the United States, building on top of platforms over a rail yard. And it has innovative technology integrated throughout: microgrid, stormwater recapture, lighting and occupancy sensors, and so on. And so New York City is a unique place for this, and these projects provide a really kind of a runway to think about how technology can benefit residents and benefit New Yorkers. We're on the very early phases of a similar project, although much larger scale. I would say it's 6 times the size of Hudson Yards, in in Western Queens, also building over 180-acre rail yard. So we're in the beginning planning phases of that, thinking about what that new neighborhood could look like and how do we integrate technology responsibly. I thought one thing that was, that's interesting about Hudson Yards that I found personally interesting is that while it integrates smart city technology, it is not the smart city that it was once talked about or initially talked about, right? It had, I remember hearing about it as sort of a true smart city in the sense that there's a constant sort of data collection of like traffic and flows and heat and noise and air pollution and a constant feedback loop and analysis then informs operations and planning. And that hasn't happened, and I think speaks to the challenges of deploying urban tech solutions in the city. Over the last few years, the concerns around data privacy and security have increased very rapidly, and they're very, very real. And they need to be dealt with. I think we're seeing some of some of that backlash, I think, in Sidewalk Labs, in Sidewalk Labs project in Toronto. And so, how do we collectively address these concerns? I think they are, in some ways, barriers to adoption, although in other ways, one can think about, well, maybe we're not ready as a society to, roll it out so quickly. I think we still need to prove for people that this benefits the average person. I think the challenges around privacy and security provide also opportunities from an economic development perspective. We just finished a one-year deployment of startups collecting data through sensors in downtown Brooklyn and feeding those into a dashboard that the Brooklyn Partnership is now using for planning decisions. And it's been a really great process that's involved the community and that has built trust and educated startups and government and academia about the opportunities in the data and also the challenges and what they each need to know about each other to work together, right? The Hudson Yards project, I imagine it's a unique opportunity because it's one single real estate developer, but a real estate developer is not a data company, and a data company is not a real estate developer, and a data company doesn't know how government makes decisions. So a lot of stakeholders really need to be in sync to make smart cities, happen at scale. And so, cybersecurity, which I think is the topic that unites us all here, it's another example of that. With increased connectivity comes increased demand for cybersecurity services, and there's currently insatiable demand for cybersecurity products, which is underlying our $100 million investment to create 10,000 jobs over 10 years and train 10,000 people in New York in cybersecurity skills over the next 3 years. And so I think there's tremendous opportunity. I thank you all for what you're doing today in New York to support economic development and keep the city safe. I think we all have a responsibility, and we need to partner with you to really build trust around how data is collected, used, analyzed, accessed, and who's benefited, and showing everyday New Yorkers that the technology is there to make life better for them. Thank you very much.
Anna, thank you very much. I think that if there was one person in the audience that was not sure why the event is here, so now you convinced us. Greetings for the amazing work that you have been doing, and for not forgetting the parks that we can enjoy when it's sunny and not so cold. So thank you very much.